Yeah. I think that's how we normally started. Hey guys, welcome back to Orms TV. Today we have the all-new Canon R6 that we're going to do a little review on for you guys. One of the cameras that we have been most excited to get our hands on, and she's finally here and we get to try it in the flesh and full out. Now we're out here at the beautiful Intaka Island. We're extremely privileged to be able to shoot here, and we've been out shooting the entire morning. Now, I just want to state before we get into this, I am an absolute novice at bird photography. It's awfully difficult to shoot birds with a Leica M and a manual focus 50mm lens, and I know you guys are going to roast me in the comments because of some of my picks, but we tried and the R6 really made it incredible. Now, I just want to do a quick shout out to Intaka Island. I mean, look at it. It is gorgeous. It is a beautiful location, and we're so privileged to be able to shoot here and have a location like this in the heart of Cape Town, to be able to come out here and take some amazing pictures of some truly spectacular birds. It's really wonderful, and I can highly recommend a visit if you've never been out here. But now let's dive into the specs of this unit, and then we'll take you through what it was like to shoot with it the entire morning. Let's get into that. I don't know where I am. I can't see Table Mountain. Now, if you guys want to see full specification breakdown on this unit, please go back and watch our first look video that we did when Canon first announced the EOS R5 and R6. There we give you a full rundown, but for right now, I just want to touch on the key specifications. Now, to kick it off, this unit runs a brand new 20 megapixel CMOS sensor. You also have a completely redesigned dual pixel autofocus system. In the EOS R6, you have over 6,000 autofocus points, and that's rather spectacular. You also have completely new autofocus algorithms that runs in this unit, and that allows the camera to do face recognition, eye tracking autofocus, and in a bit of a first, also eye tracking autofocus on an entire range of animals, not just dogs and cats, you know, kind of domestic animals, but pretty much everything. And today we're specifically going to test that feature on birds. I mean, it works so well. It works absolutely fantastic. The R6 runs Canon's Digic X processing chip, which is the latest processor that they've got. It's a little powerhouse. You get all the performance, all of that in there. It's rather beautiful. Now, with the combination of that brand new 20 megapixel sensor and Digic X processor, you are expecting pretty good low light performance out of this unit. Unfortunately, it's Cape Town, and today decided to be a nice sunny day, so low light performance testing is a little bit out at the moment, but you have an ISO range running all the way from 50 to 204,800, and that does promise some pretty good low light performance. It's okay, I'll power through like the champion I am. Now, the video performance on here is also pretty good. So you're running 4K at a maximum of 60 frames per second, Full HD at 120, it'll record 10-bit 422, and you can output a uncompressed signal via the HDMI port, which is all really good performance for a camera in this bracket. On the other side, you also have two SD card slots. Both of those are UHS 2 compatible SD cards, and you're going to need that speed because this unit runs at 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter and 12 frames per second with the mechanical shutter and its maximum burst speed. And that's really good, specifically at the price point where you see the EOS R6 coming in. Let's dig into how it was to shoot with this unit this morning and see how it actually performs. Bam! It's on. Okay. I just want to dig into the handling of this camera. I know I say this all the time. This is very typical Canon fare. When you pick it up, when you hold it in your hand, you know exactly what's going on. You instinctively know what all the buttons do. Everything is laid out exactly as you expect with a Canon camera. It's simple to use, it's easy to understand, and everything on the back here is very well laid out. This camera might be the absolute perfect size for a mirrorless camera to be. The grip is absolutely ideal. This is something that was one of my initial complaints about the original EOS R and then the RP that came after that. The grips were a little bit too shallow. On this unit, it's nice and deep, It allows you to hold your camera comfortably in this position as you're walking around. For what this camera is and the speed that it offers, I mean, again, we're talking 12 frames mechanical and 20 frames on the electronic shutter. It is very much aimed at people who are looking to do bird photography, as we're doing here today, and wildlife, sport photography, kind of like an action photography camera. For a camera in that bracket, it's nice and small, it's nice and tiny. I mean, we're looking at other things that compete on a similar electronic footing to this, and we're talking about, in Canon's range, something like a 1DX Mark III or Nikon's D6, and those are big, bulky, massive cameras. And to shrink it down into this form factor, I think is really nice. As you've come to expect, all the buttons on here are nice and tactile. Everything feels really solid. Canon has done away with that weird scrolly bar thing at the back, and you have our traditional joystick for moving autofocus points around, cycling through the menu, specifically if you don't want to use the nice touchscreen on the back. You have mic input and headphone out. You have your USB-C ports over here, your HDMI, dual SD card slots. What you also have is a variant of Canon's very well-known LPE6 battery over here. It'll make this camera a nice transition for anybody coming from something like a 7D Mark II, a 6D, or even an older generation, maybe 5D, because this is the battery that you're going to have, and it's great that you're able to use it in these cameras. Canon did come out with a new variant of that battery. It's given really good battery life. I mean, we've shot off hundreds of pictures today, and the battery is still reading that we've got 80% left. It's got a really nice electronic viewfinder on it as well. It is a little bit of a step down from the viewfinder that you get in the EOS R5, but really nice and bright, nice and clear, allows for quick target acquisition. On the EOS R6, you have a traditional mode dial at the top. I personally prefer a traditional mode dial because it's a lot easier to change between. In general, just a really nice camera to hold and a really nice camera to shoot for extended periods of time, and something that anybody upgrading within Canon's lineup will easily get to grips with really quickly. You can see we haven't done this in a while. I have never done any form of bird photography in my entire life, but this camera's made it so easy. And I'm not saying easy that I've gotten like spectacular photos. Please make no mistake. The ease of focusing and the ease of handling that you get out of this camera has made the exercise of learning a little bit about bird photography extremely easy and a very pleasurable experience. The way that this unit locks on is incredible, and I've never experienced it. We've had face detection and eye tracking autofocus and that kind of thing in cameras before, but we've never had it aimed so specifically at a wildlife audience. The algorithms and processing power that Canon has put in here allows the unit to recognize any form of, I want to say, living creature that you're photographing, and immediately detect that that is what you are trying to aim your camera at. You see the bird in your frame, and in a fraction of a second, there's a blue block around it. Moments later, it's a smaller blue block just around the bird's head, and then again, literally fractions of a second later, it's locked onto the bird's eye. For me, that is incredible. It's something that I've never experienced before, and I truly enjoyed it because it made this endeavor a lot easier than what I initially thought it would be. Canon promises that the R6 will do that for all types of animals. They tested it on rhinos and camels and zebras and horses, hippos and crocodiles and everything, and it does the exact same thing. I'd love to one day be able to take it into an environment where I can test that out, but for now, suffice to say that when it comes to birding, it locks on, it tracks the eye, it locks on within microseconds, and it is quite spectacular actually. Ask the videographer Jess here. The first time that I picked it up and aimed it at something, I was like, whoa, this is incredible. Like this is truly spectacular. From that moment, I actually really enjoyed the whole process of getting into a little bit of bird photography. Okay, are we good? So the other really important feature that I want to touch on today is the camera's built-in stabilization. Canon, you're late to the party. but at least you did it properly. Canon claims that with compatible lenses, this combination will give you 8 stops of stabilization. As you can see today here, I've got the 100 to 500 lens, which is a brand new lens in Canon's lineup, and I've also got the new 2x converter. At 500mm with the 2x converter, you know, we're shooting at 1000mm here, and I was shooting handheld easily, and the stabilizer makes that possible. Again, like I keep saying it's made this whole experience easy, but it actually did. You know, the subject matter that we're shooting is quite small. There's been some really small little birds that we've been photographing. 1000mm handheld, easy as can be. The stabilizer works really excellently. Honestly, a lot better than what I expected it was going to be for Canon's first attempt at an in-body stabilization system. Oh, you idiot, Dion. Let's just touch on some of the negatives here. The autofocus system, as good as it is and as potentially groundbreaking as the technology is, there were some situations that it struggled in. Chief among which was when we were shooting in quite a backlit scenario. Our light source behind the birds we were photographing, shooting towards them, the autofocus system really did struggle, especially when our subject was moving across that backlit environment. There were situations where when we were shooting in this backlit scenario and birds were flying either towards us or diagonally across the frame, it almost looked like the camera completely wasn't picking up that there was anything in the frame. In certain instances, it almost looks like you were looking at just clear sky, which was it was a little bit weird. The other thing that is worth mentioning, and we're really, you know, nitpicking on a negative here, Canon states very clearly that with this unit, it'll lock on your subject matter even if there is objects in the way, and it'll keep tracking it even if it is partially obscured. The autofocus system actually struggled a little bit with that today. Specifically, when we were down, we were shooting little birds between reeds. A lot of the times when a reed would go in front of the little bird, the autofocus system would decide that the bird is no longer important and the reed is more important. Again, let me just state that we were shooting really small subject matters, and that could have something to do with the system struggling with that. It might be a lot better if the subject matter was a little bit bigger. And we were also shooting at some pretty long focal lengths here. I mean, some of the instances we were shooting at 1000mm. You know, we had a 2x converter on there, and all of these things could impact that autofocus performance. But at the same time, this is probably the type of rig that someone might buy who is into bird photography. And for that, it is important to know that in those situations, you might struggle a little bit. The other criticism that we hear about this camera is the megapixel count. And yes, it is only 20 megapixels. If we look at where Canon has priced this unit and what it competes with, we are looking at cameras like Sony's a7 III. You know, we're even looking at stuff like Nikon's Z6, and those units have higher megapixel counts, though not by much, but higher is still higher. This might be on purpose. It is designed to be a fast focusing, fast performing, burst shooting camera. For that purpose, 20 megapixels is pretty decent. You know, you don't necessarily need much more than that to get a good, clear, sharp, action photographic focused shot. Cameras like, again, the 1DX and the D6 have very similar megapixel counts. On that, the other thing to remember is that Canon is also trying to aim this unit at being a good low light performer. And when you look at that type of application, a higher megapixel count might actually be a little bit of a hindrance. That really is something to remember when we look at the megapixel count that's on offer here. And you'll see from the sample pictures that we provide, 20 megapixels is plenty for this type of application. I'm not concerned about the fact that it only runs a 20 megapixel sensor. You good? Yeah. Because I was about to go, bam! Canon would like you to believe that this camera is designed for every single person who currently has and uses a 7D Mark II. I struggle with that. The EOS R6 is quite a bit pricier than what a 7D Mark II is. And that's going to be a put-off for a lot of people who are in that 7D Mark II bracket and is using the 7D Mark II for wildlife, sport, birding. What is good to remember here is that the EOS R6 is a full frame camera. That is realistically always going to demand a slight price premium over APS-C models. This camera offers performance that a DSLR in the price bracket of a 7D Mark II realistically cannot offer you. It's not really a replacement for the 7D Mark II. It's an upgrade. If you currently have a 7D Mark II and that is your daily camera, and you love being out in nature and doing bird photography, wildlife photography, or you're standing at the side of a rugby field on weekends, the 7D Mark II was always your go-to camera in Canon's lineup. And now this camera is that next step. Could a DSLR in the same price bracket as this give you the performance that the R6 gives you? No, realistically it can't. To match this performance in a DSLR, realistically you need to step up to something like a 1DX or a Nikon D6 camera. And those cameras are massively expensive in comparison to this, a lot bigger, and unfortunately an older technology set. These types of units realistically are the future. You know, if we leave right now, we'll make it just in time at the office for load shedding, so it's perfect. One can also argue that the EOS R6 is a suitable upgrade or follow-up camera for somebody who at the moment has a 6D or even an older generation 5D. You're getting very similar performance in a similar type of megapixel bracket, but you are getting all the bonuses that comes with mirrorless technology. You're getting that phenomenal autofocus system. You're getting the speed and the bursts that you get with this mirrorless setup, which a 6D or a 5D cannot give you. Another point that you could consider is that if at the moment you have a Canon EOS RP, this could also be a phenomenal camera to jump to if you want to take that little bit of a step up. Or even if you have an EOS R that you maybe picked up a few years ago when Canon first jumped into the full frame mirrorless bracket, and you've now found yourself maybe specializing a little bit more in sport, wildlife, birding, that kind of thing, the R6 is the type of camera that you want to be looking at. Cool.
Right. Donesies.
Boom. So what's my verdict? The Canon EOS R6 is one of Canon's latest generation mirrorless cameras. And I think at the price point, it actually offers quite a lot. You've got the speed when you're shooting in burst mode here. You've got built-in stabilization, which works phenomenally well. And you've got an autofocus system that absolutely blows the socks off what else is available at the moment. And something that is realistically going to become an industry standard within the next couple of years. Forget that Canon is trying to say that this is an ultimate all-rounder camera, because I don't think it is. I think this is actually quite a purposeful camera. And I think that if you are someone who's interested in upping your game in terms of wildlife or sports photography, the Canon EOS R6 should be pretty much at the top of your list. That is very obviously flashing a heat sign.
Yeah, that's a temperature warning.
Yes. So after we recorded our conclusion and our original verdict and all of that, we realized that we wanted to record some more video, and specifically we wanted to record video at 4K 50, which we hadn't done previously today. So we came out here into this little bird hide, and as you saw from the previous clip that was played, we ran into a bit of a heating problem. And due to that, here's our new verdict on this camera. The EOS R6 is a phenomenal camera. It is a phenomenal stills camera. And I'm going to emphasize that word again. It's a stills camera. Okay, you have a beautiful 20 megapixel sensor here. You've got excellent low light performance. You have an autofocus system that will blow your mind and will arguably become an industry standard in the years to come. I have never experienced anything quite as phenomenal as this camera's autofocus system. But, and man, this is a big but, when we ran into that overheating problem, it really hurt the entire experience. Initially, when we were shooting video at 4K 30 and Full HD, it was fine. It was absolutely fine. We didn't run into this problem. We came in here, we pushed it up to 4K 50, and after, I mean, what are we talking about? 3 clips of video, you know, probably in totaling 7 or 8 minutes of video, the camera overheated. We've got the footage of that, you guys can see it. It's really not great. Now, when this happened, I did get onto the phone with Canon South Africa, and they have confirmed that this unit is still running beta firmware, and that is important to note. They have said that launch firmware is better, and I will point that out. This is still a sample unit, so there is still room for improvement here. Canon have also indicated that there are future firmware versions being worked on for both the R6 and the R5 that will improve the overheating problem. But right now, as it stands right here, this is an amazing stills camera. It truly, truly is. But if you are looking for something to slot into your production video workflow, unfortunately, I cannot recommend this camera in that capacity. So that's my verdict, and now back to our original outro. Thank you very much for joining us for this review of the Canon EOS R6. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you very much for Intaka Island for giving us this rather spectacular backdrop to film against. Seriously, if you guys have never been here, like me, I'll admit, I've never been here before, even though I literally live almost walking distance from here. It's quite spectacular, and you really need to take the time and come out here. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous place. Now, as a disclaimer, I just want to say that as right now and during the video, you would have seen me not wearing my mask. That is because we were literally completely alone here. And even now, as I'm talking to you, our videographer Jess is easily 5 to 7 meters away from me. You know, so we are practicing social distancing, and you know, just want to put that in there as a disclaimer. Now, as always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to drop us a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. We have a super exciting review of the all-new Sony a7S Mark III coming out next, and oh, I can't wait for you guys to see that. That is one tasty camera. And if there is anything that you'd like to know, anything that you'd like us to know, and any thoughts that you would like to drop on this camera or any of Canon's other new mirrorless cameras, leave them in the comments section down below. We love hearing from you guys. We reply to all of those comments and we love reading them. Thank you very much.